Bill Shaw, my friend.
Yes, we are.
My 20th guest.
20. Hey, that's cool. I wonder
think
where
about
he was
that?
at.
Yeah, 20. It's 20, right? Yeah, it's 20.
I don't know how to turn this down.
Kurt was 19.
Oh, there's sleep. No. Sleep. On. Okay. I got you.
All right, so no dings.
I hope. I mean, my phone's on silent. Now my watch is on silent. So.
Well, listen, I appreciate you doing this. I know it's short notice, kind of. We talk about doing it a lot, but we just never really put a date down.
Yeah, we talked about it. We just never got around to,
Putting a date down. I'm terrible about that.
Actually, I like that I'm 20 because that means you're good at it now and you can cover up my mess ups. So
I don't know if I'm any better at it. What is it? Let's see. I was thinking I need to figure out how to expand my circle of potential guests. And someone actually suggested you should just ask one of your guests, hey, you got anybody? Think about it. If you get anybody that might make a good guest or has a good story. But trying to find 20 people to sit down and have a conversation with me for an hour or two has actually not been near as difficult as I expected. If you think about it, that's a lot of people.
Okay, so take 20 times every person that you've done has shared it in their friends, probably on their Facebook.
Yeah.
Like I'm bumping over 2,000 people on Facebook, so that's a lot of people that you're exposed to, and now you're saying you'd be up for taking on other guests. So
yeah, if they'd be interested.
If you're interested in my friends, hey, give Nathan a holler.
I've not had anyone on that I don't know in some way or another. So I've never had anybody that, let me put this away just right there. There you go.
The cameraman coming out in you.
You know who's coming.
No, you're good. I can hear myself. Everything's good.
You're good. So, no, everybody I've had on, I actually consider a friend. On some level, I think everybody I've had on, I've either had a good conversation with, and I'm like, oh, fuck, I need to get this person on. So, for me, it was kind of easy. It was just anybody I could relate to, find some kind of common ground, and, for you and I, we did that. We went and had lunch one day, because I was already thinking about you as a guest, because you're friends with some of my friends.
Right.
And they think the world of you.
Our main connection.
We have two.
You remember our main connection, though.
Garrett.
Well, yeah.
That was the first one.
Let's not mention Garrett. Okay. Second one is
Tom.
Our dad.
Oh.
No, remember?
Oh, yeah.
We really got more close. I met you probably 2 years before this. And then right when the pandemic hit, we started meeting out behind Toots.
Yep.
You pulled up one day and say, I lost my dad. I said, damn, I did too. I know where you.
Well, it was weird. We were actually out there. That's okay. So that's the weird part is that's when we first started really becoming friends, but I hadn't lost my dad yet.
Yeah.
So like one of our first good conversations, we were out there just hanging out, and my wife and I leave. Right? Do you remember my wife? And anyways, we leave. We say goodbye, die. And that's when I found out. I found out about an hour later.
Right.
And then I come back and then told you. But yeah, and you had just recently lost yours.
Well, like I said, and we're not talking about Tom Jones. I mean,
fair enough.
He's not my friend. I don't like him, any of that stuff. So,
well,
no, we have several connections. You're right.
Yeah.
I'm just being judged. But the father thing is, I don't know. It's just I had been through it, and I knew it was hurting, dude. I mean, it hurts, but we're cool.
Well, I never know what to say in those situations, and you nailed it. And it was very appropriate, and I think I was kind of prepared for a while. You know what I mean? Not that he was on his deathbed or anything. Maybe I just think that way.
Now, I got 5 or 6 days with my dad versus you getting a phone call. They told us that Dad was going to go, so it's different. But yeah, that's the connection. I think maybe. I think more deeper about. Yeah, we got Garrett. Garrett introduced us together. That's our, Garrett introduces everybody to everybody. So
yeah, Garrett's the ringleader of everybody's little group.
Yeah, that's true.
So because of that, we ended up sitting down at lunch together, and I had a wonderful time because I actually just wanted to get to know more about you. And plus, I had just started the podcast, and I already knew you was an interesting person just based on the friends that I had that enjoyed hanging out with you. And I knew you was a big bullshitter and shit talker, and you know what I mean?
Yeah.
In some ways, hard ass joke, big kidder, and I loved everything about that. And we ended up having a great conversation. And it was funny because I was actually thinking about it tonight because you asked me what we was going to talk about. And for whatever reason, I don't want to go into this because it's depressing shit.
Yeah.
I started watching this. Well, first of all, have you ever heard of the Gulag Archipelago?
No.
Okay, so I haven't talked about it yet, but it's something I've been studying for years, and I don't want to get into it, but it's reality. It's very depressing shit. It's about the former Soviet Union. But for whatever reason, doing all that research just got me understanding how human beings actually function, and it's fucking dark. I'm not gonna lie. Human beings have the ability to be really, really dark, which pushed me into some weird YouTube channels. One in particular is called White Snake. No, White. What the hell is it? Underbelly. Something. White. Soft white underbelly, I think it is. It's a YouTube channel based on hard stuff. I mean, anything from incest to drug addiction, prostitution. It's just the worst of the worst. If you're on the show, you're probably not featured in a very positive light. But it's this guy that just interviews, and man, it just a lot of BS. There's a lot of BS in the world, bad BS.
No,
And that's one thing that's funny is BS Bill Shaw, the BS that makes sense, because everything I've researched did not make sense. Literally, you was on your way here, and I was watching a video about cannibalism. It just popped up on those. It's YouTube's, the algorithm's starting to figure out what I'm into, and it suggested this German dude that had a fantasy of eating another person.
Oh, wow.
Well, ironically, he found someone that wanted to be eaten. Can you believe that? Wanted to be eaten alive. There's these weird... So the internet has everything. And I was like, oh, my God. And they actually went through with it. Filmed it.
Oh, my gosh.
And I was like,
no,
this is bullshit. People are fucking crazy.
Yeah. And that is some of the conversation that we had is about how, the difference in people. Yeah. But that's... I didn't know... I can't wait for that podcast when you start talking.
I don't know if I even want to go into it because it's horrifying. But you had this, and you popped this thing on me when we actually sat down and had lunch, and you were talking about the BS that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I thought that was the most brilliant title book. And I think it started off as a potential book. Is that right?
Yeah, I'm still writing. I'm still writing on it. What's funny... at that lunch, you called and said, let's do dinner, lunch, whatever. And, we're sitting there and you're throwing this podcast at me. And I think your words were, hey, this is something that I'm doing and starting to do. And I think you would be good at it and you may want to look into it. And then maybe we could kind of co-work together, collaborate. Things like that. And it was such a weird timing because I had I'd been thinking of those things because Dad passed away three years ago in December, and some weird way this BS that makes sense is what came out of it, and it's a long story, and we'll either talk or not talk about it, whatever. But yeah, it came up that day. And,
well, I want to ask real quick. The BS that makes sense, I think, actually refers to your father's name's.
Yeah, my dad's name's Bill Shaw too.
Okay, so
I'm
both
junior.
BSs.
Yeah, and my son, my oldest son, is BS too.
So there's a lot of BS in the family.
He doesn't BS as much as me and Dad did. Yeah.
Well, I think it originally the idea came from your father's BS that made sense, and now is that right or
no, you're right. Yeah. So the story, I know we're here for a little while, but the story is that I'm trying to compact it a little bit. But, I was raised really poor, small town, 750 people, I always say. Dad was a police officer in town, fire chief. We knew pretty much everybody in Alexandria, right, up the road here. And I don't know. Dad was a preacher, though. Main thing was he was a preacher, but he never handled his money well. I can remember Dad coming home, from work more than once and saying, "Okay, boy, we're gonna have to tighten our belt a little bit. I decided to quit today." And I'm like, what? And he's like, yep. I'll be without a job for a little while until we figure out something. He always had the preaching job that supplemented whatever the offering plate brought in. Or his dad was never, he was like a Billy Graham to me. He didn't make that much money doing it. But so real forward. My mom was always the working bee. I will say I got my almost 35 years at Nissan from my mom. You know, she retired working night shift, you know, on the production floor. It's crazy.
In Nissan?
No, she actually made mufflers for Nissan.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, she was on the production floor, night shift, making mufflers at Tenneco in Smithville when she retired, 65. It's crazy. But anyway, so, shoot, I don't remember what year it was. My mom and dad lost their house. And, you know, you kind of don't want to jump into anybody's finances and everything. And Dad gets a church in Manchester, preaches there. And then he moves from that church. And next thing I know, my mom and dad's living in an RV in a trailer park in Smart, Tennessee.
You're with them this whole time.
No. I'm at Nissan.
You're an adult at this point.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, I left.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm adult. This is long after I'd left. My little brother was gone too. You know, it's just mom and dad. But still, I mean, your mom and dad living in a, 20-foot RV in the wintertime in a trailer park. And at that time, my wife at the time, I was like, I think I'm going to buy a house. And that was one of my first investments into real estate, was to purchase a house for them. And that way it was my mortgage and my dad couldn't handle it. So that kind of gives you an idea of how I felt like my dad could handle money, because mom let dad handle the money. My dad dies, and I'm sitting at the funeral, and the preacher who my dad mentored is preaching. And he said, Brother Bill didn't have money because he gave it all away. And I'm sitting there going, do what? This is at my dad's funeral now. And he said, yeah. He said, and the whole time he was preaching, I was thinking, there was a church in Woodbury reached out to me and said, hey, your daddy sends a check every week, every month, every month, because they lived on Social Security. That's all they had. Every month he sends us $200. Out of $2,400, my dad sent a church in Woodbury $200, He said, we're not going to cash that check this month because we know your mom probably needs the money. I hollered at Mom. I said, Mom, this is so-and-so on the... She said, if your daddy sent the check, tell him to cash it. This is all going through my head the whole time this kid is preaching my dad's funeral. He said, yeah. He said, Brother Bill, he said, he was a police officer. He took care of people. He was a fireman. He took care of people. He gave, preacher trying to take care of people. This is why Bill didn't have anything. I'm telling you, the one life event that I've had since my dad died was, oh wow, I knew my dad, but in the same sense, he never taught me this. He never, he never said, hey, Billy, this is what we do. That's what they, my name's Billy, and that's what they call me. But he said, this is what we do, or this is how you do it. Now, he preached to me about tithing, giving God the 10% or whatever. But, and from that, I just started, I've always been a poet and wrote stuff of a morning, stuff like that. Nobody knows that really, but till now. But I don't know. I was just sitting there and I felt like, this is crazy. They got to be something somewhere. And I just started writing stuff because I got a lot of stories. I'm a storyteller.
Mm-hmm.
You know that. I love telling stories. And I just started writing stuff. And one day, again, me not being my dad, but I've always said my initials got me in as many places as blonde hair's got women in. My bullshit gets me in places. Accent, and I can talk. And so as the BS kept working around, and finally I come up with this BS that makes sense. The stuff that my dad used to say or has said now makes sense. Yeah. And I just started writing. I couldn't figure it out. I've wrote it 2 or 3 times, and then what I really broke it down, and it's still a work in progress, but I broke it down into chapters of BS. Like the first chapter is Be Smart. Mm-hmm. And then I talk about how we need to be smart about things in life. Be saving. I wouldn't be where I am today if I wouldn't have saved my money along the way. Things like that. So it's
tricks, little tricks.
Yeah.
And I think it's something that I talk about a lot is I always say that life is a magic show. And it's full of these little magic tricks. And I'm always trying to understand the little tricks. And that's, once you understand these little tricks in life, that, it just gives you a path, a direction. Because I don't know if there's a wrong direction unless you're taking from others. But as long as you're trying to provide value in the world and you're just being the best version of you possible, I literally don't think there's a wrong way. So I'm saying I think that's what the book could be about, or maybe it is about. And I think that's maybe, I didn't mean, when I was thinking about you and podcasting, I knew you had retired, and I was thinking, oh, he'd be perfect. You got the good personality for it. I think you'd be perfect to do your own thing. I had no idea, obviously, about the book, but I was just now thinking so many ideas that you could have in podcasting, like, oh, shit, you know what? That needs to go in my book.
Yeah, when you hit me up about it, you had no idea about this, and I think that kind of turned your gears again, and I've still not, I told you, I bought the equipment. I've got a buddy that's been in broadcasting. Me and him are still working on it. One of the things that I've learned later in life, and I guess I don't know, I guess working at Nissan, everything has to, it's got to click. And I think some things are better once they're worked on. I had the first goal of completing the book in 12 months. I wanted to, by my dad's, December 15th of 18, I wanted to have the book finished. And I researched, and I had a little over 10,000 words written the first year, but it wasn't published. Then the second year, I kind of drug my feet some more, and it's kind of like, well, I'll publish it by the next year. Well, then the actual chapters broke out. The BS stuff kind of came to mind. So that took a whole other year. Yeah. And then my story. The pandemic breaks out. My mom moves in with me. Last year was just a cluster. But, it's still there. It's still in the computer. I still work on it, still
I think it's
things, so.
Whether you ever publish it or not, it'll be left to your kids. And I think you will. Yeah. I think you will. But if it doesn't feel done, then it's not done. If it doesn't feel right, then it's not done. But I think it's probably all kinds of little things. You were talking about how much BSing got you in a lot of places. And I tell my kids, I'm like, look, my education is a little different than most people's. I look at what's effective, and I don't try to teach them what to learn as much as I try to teach them how to learn. And because there's so much. You could simply say science. Okay, which one? Yeah. Like, you got to know science. Right? Okay, but it's infinite almost, the sciences that you can learn. So give them a good foundation of how to get through life. And I was like, but look, no matter what you learn in life, I think the most valuable thing you could ever develop is your charisma. Being able to communicate with other people, reading a room, knowing when to get in, when to get out, like charisma, timing, comedy. You know what I'm saying? Understanding how to take shit from somebody and deflecting and giving it right back, talking shit. Right. Without being aggressive and rude and beta-minded, not being a bully. And so that is an art. Bullshitting is an art.
Yeah, and I don't think this has come later in life. Mm-hmm. I went to work at Nissan at 21 as a technician, putting parts together, had a little bit of college, and after 4 years of working on the line,
they'll teach you how to bullshit.
I'm like, I got to figure out something. I got to get back in school. I got to get something going. And so I spent, 25 years of my life at Nissan trying to figure out how to please everybody and climb the corporate ladder and make sure. And Tom Jones, when you hear this, yes, I didn't climb as high as you, but okay.
Some of us are more insecure than others.
It's just Jones. Just but no, we're good. I had a great career there. Yeah. And another little weird fact, I lost my brother about 13 to 14 years ago. And I never will forget, there was an HR lady there one night. We were talking. I think I was on night shifts. I was struggling, you don't realize how much losing a loved one can mentally affect you. And a year or two had passed, and I was getting in the middle of having marital problems, and the lady looked at me and she said, "Have you ever thought that maybe when your little brother died that you realized how short life is?" I'd never thought about that. I was like, "Oh shit, what?" And it just got me to thinking. I do contribute. Not that Michael and I were that close, but he was my brother. It was a 4 o'clock in the morning knock on the door by the sheriff's department. We didn't have cell phones back then. It was not expected, and so from that, it's just like, I think my career at Nissan, I had reached kind of a pinnacle, and I started thinking about, am I happy? Is working, and God forbid people at Nissan don't take this against me, because
you're talking about every factory, every job at this point.
Yeah, automotive.
What your experience is
automotive is crazy, because when you're selling cars, you're working, especially when we were working 2 shifts back then. There wasn't 3 shifts. I was coming in at 6 o'clock, 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning. I wasn't getting home. Now remember, it wasn't their fault that I was driving all the way back to Smithfield, but I wouldn't get home till 7. By the time you get home, eat dinner, and just relax. A lot of people say, "Well, that drive gets you relaxed." Driving's driving. You drive an hour and 5-10 minutes, worry about hitting a cow in the country. But I think that was the start of me realizing. And again, there's a whole other side of that. But you're realizing that there's more to life than just living in this box. And I don't know.
That box that you're talking about, I think about a lot. I mean, man, I've made a lot of changes here lately. I don't even think I've told you. Maybe Garrett's talked to you about it, but it just wasn't making me happy. Making money. I'm just in a weird spot right now, and I'm like, hold on. My anxiety's high, my stress is high, my blood pressure's high, and I thought it was weight, I thought it was salt, I thought it was diet, I thought it was a lot. And I'm not hypertension. I'm not. Every time I get my blood pressure done, it's going up, and I was like, what the freak is wrong with me? And I really believed it was the responsibilities I put on myself, and I was like, you need to chill. So I've just literally cut everything out of my life. For the most part, any unnecessary spending, making money, it's like I just put everything aside, and man, I feel so much better. But anyways, what I was trying to say, that box that you were referring to, is working to pay for shit that I don't need, we don't need, and it's irrelevant. I think if I'm going to spend anything on anything, it's got to be memories, because that's something you take for the rest of your life, especially good ones.
Well, for a poor boy like me, being raised like I was, my dad... My mom had a 9th grade education. My dad got kicked out of high school his senior year for driving a car through school.
Hold on, he drove a car in the school?
Tried to. He hung the bumper on the last step going down the steps. Oh yeah, he was
just goofing.
Yeah. Bullshit. And Cookville High School. I would love to find somebody that knew the story, but he got kicked out. So the year I graduated high school, my dad got his GED, and we kind of graduated the same time together. It was kind of, or he may have had his GED. I can't remember. I know we got class rings at the same time. But yeah, so cool. Working at Nissan was a blessing. It was like, now I have seen since then, and it's kind of made me feel like I've hopefully done a decent job of raising kids. But my son posted something the other day with Mr. Wonderful, from Shark Tank, talking about how a salary, and I've said this before, but it doesn't mean as much until it comes from Mr. Wonderful, in Shark Tank. But the money, when you go, I was making $5.53 an hour when I came to Nissan, started making like almost 15. I tripled my money. And Mr. Wonderful says a salary is like a drug. And you get used to it, and you just have to have it. Yep. And I went for years just wanting more of that drug. How much more money can I make? How much more money can I make? And and you just, I mean, I've been blessed again. But you know, I've had side gigs. You know, I've got rental property and stuff like that. I've built some houses, but yeah, you realize after a point, like you're saying, there's a lot of stress into. I mean, let's just look back to the week that we had frozen. Not to cut you off, sorry.
Yeah, no, you're fine.
But the frozen week we just went through, the Monday, my hot water froze. And Tom Jones, by the way. Me and Tom Jones had frozen water. Tuesday, I had a water line bust in a rent house in Cookeville. Wednesday, I had a hot water heater bust in another house. And Thursday, I had a central heat and air unit freeze up. I mean, that's stress right there, you know. But it, you know, at this point, I've been very blessed to have people in places that can kind of take care of it, and it's not too bad. But
well, I do think that a salary can provide one, like if you can learn to live within our means, and we're not a type of society that's programmed, I guess you could say, to live within our means. We're designed, and we're what would it be? We are what's the word? We're not conned. We are influenced by our media, our social status is of a consumer, to be like me, and to be the celebrity. Right? And we glorify those things.
That's the BS that makes sense. That's the bullshit that everybody tells us. If we live within our means,
we don't glorify that. We don't reward it.
I'm telling you, and that's kind of what I write about is we feel like we got to drive the most expensive car, have the most expensive watch.
Yeah.
I mean,
we have the most egotistical society we live in, and it's incredible because I struggle with it, because I struggle with all the isms: capitalism, socialism, all these isms.
Yep.
And I think about all of them, and they're all bad. They're all bad. They can all be taken advantage of. There's a flip side to every corner. You know the quarter. You know what it's saying, right? Yep. And too much is no good. And we don't know when to stop. And so I think about it. I think about capitalism. I think about all the progress, and it's all good. These are all wonderful things. We're able to feed 7 billion people, almost. You know, we're almost feeding 7 billion people. But the other side is that we're the commercials, the television is there to feed our ego, to show us what we should be doing. We should be making. They glorify Hollywood in a way that is so unhealthy. I literally I've deleted my Facebook and my Instagram off my phone. I didn't delete my accounts, but I don't have access to it.
Yeah.
I'm at Buster's trying to get a burger yesterday, and I can't just be with myself without my thumb sitting there flipping through you. I'm like, what is wrong with me? And I realize, why can't I be with my thoughts? You know, I am when I'm driving, but not when I'm sitting at a restaurant or in a chair in a waiting area. I feel like I need to be on Facebook and Instagram. And I was just realizing the insane waste of energy and advertising. And I just thought, God, this is not good. This is, as great as all these things are, the technology, there's a really big burden that we're going to pay in the long run that we haven't quite realized. And I'm just kind of feeling it. And I'm just saying, no. I got to reevaluate my choices in life.
That's where I turned you on to Simon Sinek. I don't know if you.
I never actually. You talked about him.
Yeah.
Can we talk? I want to come back to Simon Sinek. Give me 2 seconds. I want to get some ice. All right. You need to go bathroom or anything?
No, we're good.
So we was at. You were going to talk about Simon Sinek, and
you were talking about the telephone, and I said that's where I had mentioned Simon Sinek to you. One of the. And I'm telling you, if you've never heard of Simon Sinek, I'm going to push him. I wish he would help you, with some advertising or something. But I found him when I was doing my last gig there, at Nissan, teaching and trying to train people how to manage other people. And I know just as well as what you were saying about how addicting this phone is. A lot of times we worry about the younger generation. And even if you listen to Simon, he talks about the younger generation. I'm 56 years old, and I can tell you that sun gun will draw me in a heartbeat. So I'm just as bad as any young kid, so I don't hold it against the younger generation. But he talks about, and this is what you'll remember, because this one thing I love about you is how much you've studied the human body and what makes us click. But he talks about what is the drug we get that dopamine. Thank you. Yeah. So he talks about
that's the reward.
Yeah.
Hormone.
And he talks about how dopamine is connected to the phone.
Yes, it's designed to release small hits.
Yeah.
I call it, what do I call it? I've been calling it something, go ahead, it'll come to me in a minute.
No, but I mean, what he lodges it to, and talking about the younger generation, and I know this is true because he talks about things like if you're sitting around, and I'm a very codependent person. I've had to really work on that. I love people, and I think that's I want to be around people. I want to talk to people, and
it releases dopamine every time you can get a smile out of somebody. Anytime you can make someone laugh, it makes you feel good.
And he says that's the same thing we do with the phone. Yeah. It's, hey, what's up? Hey, how are you doing? How's the job going? You're just asking people questions only to get those kicks back. But he takes it a step further, talking about the younger generation. This is where I worry about, my grandchildren is, and my son does a good job, in case he watches this, y'all do a good job, of limiting my grandson on his tablets, and he doesn't have a phone yet or whatever. But, he says, we let a child have a phone at 12 years old. That same dopamine is the same dopamine you get when you turn up a bottle of alcohol. He said,
heroin,
yeah,
everything.
So if you're going to let a child have a phone at 12, he'll say, open up the liquor cabinet, and I'm like, holy crap. I never thought about that it's that. And it just, I'm like you. I try to limit myself. I haven't deleted my accounts, of course, because...
No, you even double down. I mean, they're important. All these things are important, and I struggle with them because, with the podcast, why am I doing the podcast? Well, it's a commitment. Well, because my kids talk me into it. I use all these excuses, and it's true, and I enjoy conversations, and I thought, hey, it would be cool to record some of these because, honestly, I've learned so much about myself. I am a better version of me since I've been doing these because I was able to go back and reflect on how much I interrupt other people. I realized how terrible of a communicator we are. Humans are just awful. It's all about our story. We're always waiting to get in and tell our story so we can get that hit of dopamine. Is all we're chasing. We're all chasing the same thing, whether we're consuming, we're buying our happiness, snorting our happiness, driving fast, or entertaining someone. It's all for the same system. And it's funny, you were saying all that, and I just deleted all mine, and I am doing a podcast, but I worried about this. I worried about the videos that I release on YouTube because in the beginning, I can't tell you how good it felt. It was the craziest high I've ever experienced when 50 people watched a video, and then it was 5,000, and then it was tens of thousands of people were watching these videos, and they weren't necessarily me in the video. It was just work that I had done, and the likes and the comments, and it's just, oh my God, it's overwhelming. And I realized very quickly, this is not sustainable. This is not healthy. Yeah. This is not good. Right. It's okay to do something productive or creative and just put it out there. I don't want to even, Joe Rogan says it best. Post and ghost.
It's so funny because Rogan came up in our conversation. My youngest son, he probably have been listening to Rogan for 3 or 4 years. He was like, Dad, you got to listen to this podcast guy, Joe Rogan. Only until probably after your conversation with me about, hey, you might want to look into this, did I start listening to Rogan. And that was, you're right. One of the things he says is don't read any of the comments. Don't, all this.
You don't need to read the good ones or the bad ones.
Yeah, he does. Yeah.
I mean, I guess if you want to grow, if it's your business, maybe. This is not my business. And the reason why I'm doing this is because I don't depend on it financially.
Right.
This is to catalog and archive ideas and just good conversations. And my kids, I tell you, if my dad had done something like this, I would be consuming it. I still listen to my voicemails that he's left me.
Yeah.
I love them. And I thought, man, the BS that makes sense from my dad, because my dad was my freaking rock. Even though he made a lot of mistakes, doesn't matter. He was just trying to be happy. Look, when it come down to it, he's the one person I'd call when I was like, I don't know what to do, Dad. Yeah. And I know it all, right? And I read about everything. But when it comes down to, okay, this is it. When you're emotionally connected to something, whether it be emotionally because it's stressful, love, anger, whatever emotion you're feeling, it's really hard to process logic. Like it's really hard to logic and emotion really don't blend well.
Right.
So to have somebody that is just going to tell you the truth and they it's hard to describe, but when you're emotionally connected to something, a marriage, a failing marriage, or your child, it's really, really hard to make a logical decision. So just to have somebody like that you, God, just believe in is hard, and you lose that. And I thought, God, if I had had all my dad's thoughts and ideas, half of them I would have just been like, oh, he was just a fool. But there's some that, because it's hard to beat life experience, and he had a lot more of it than me.
Yeah, and I mean, think of it in my regards is I felt like I was, I'm not going to say smarter than my dad, but maybe in some ways. My dad bragged on me and my career, but it's only until his funeral do I think about the stuff that he was teaching me without even saying a word. Yeah. And I don't think I've got to share this with you too, because I've heard this since I lost Mom. And it makes really a lot of sense. It says you really don't become an adult until you lose both parents.
That's tough.
and I'm like, wait a minute, maybe I'm not ready for this. Hold on.
That is tough.
But yeah, it's pretty deep, and I've had those times.
Oh, I knew the one about the dad. You don't become a man until you either lose your father or your father gets to a point of acceptance. I've noticed a lot of guys that men struggle in life, and it's because their father, nothing was ever good enough. And I don't think that fathers realize what they're doing, but I think it's a biological thing. I think it's an evolutionary instinct in a father to look at their son and recognize they're not ready. And so we criticize and we patronize as a father. It's a very, what we're looking for our son to say is, fuck you, man. You made your mistakes. I'm going to make mine. And you have to accept that.
Yeah.
Right? And once a son does that, it's like, okay. And I did that with my father. I went through that process, and he was like, nothing was ever good enough until that point. I felt like a failure. I talk about my inferiority complex. I have this inferiority complex.
Yeah.
But it came from my upbringing because nothing was ever good enough. But it also, the flip side of that negative, it made me incredible at everything. I never had competition in life because I was just so hungry to be the best. I had to be the best. But my point is it's about balance. It's about balance.
But you're exactly on point. I mean, I'm older than you are.
Yeah.
But I have a son that's, close to your son's age. 19,
I have 3 of them. So
right, and I have 3.
Yeah.
We have another thing we have in common. Mine are older, except for the younger one is young, and I was raised. When you turn 18, you're on your own, and pretty much raised all. It's funny. I don't know where I got this idea. It wasn't from my dad, but at 12 years old, I sat down with every one of my children. And I said, okay, we're going to have this talk because for the next 8, 10, 15 years, Dad's going to be the stupidest, dumbest. Anything I say is going to be just ignoramus. I mean, it's just, you can't believe I'm going to ask you to do this. And I said, just know this. We're going to butt heads for the next few years, okay? Don't mean I don't love you, but I am your father, and this is the way it's going to be. And but now when you get 18, you're on your own, buddy. You do what you want to. Figure it out. I'm doing my best. Well, I've had some struggles with some of them, along the way. But I'm getting to a story. How my dad taught me, he never said, hey, Billy, this is what we're going to do. Michael, my little brother, he became without a house, homeless at some point, and he asked my mom and dad, hey, can I come back home? My dad's a preacher. My little brother's an alcoholic, and I probably done some drugs too. But anyway, my dad said, you can come live here as long as you want. We got one rule: no alcohol in this house. You understand? Yes, sir. And my dad came home the second day, whiskey bottles all over the room. Michael's drunk, laying in bed. Pack up your bags, boy. Michael packed up his bags. My dad told me this story. Didn't know he was teaching me anything. Packed up his bags. And if y'all want to look it up on the map, there's a little bitty town called Timberts Hall, Tennessee. That's where my mom was Miss Timberts Hall when she was about 17 years old. I got a picture of that. It's pretty cool.
Very cool.
Yeah, that my family was raised in a little bit. There's not even hardly. There was one general store. There's a bridge in that town. My dad baptized a lot of people in that creek out there. Drove Michael to that bridge. He said, "Get out, son." What? He said, "You can live on that bridge until you can figure it out." Out in the middle of nowhere. And he said, "Billy, I cried all the way home." But he said, "I had to do that. That's tough love." That's one thing my dad taught me. And so when those kids get that age, as you said, you had to tell your dad, "Hey, screw off." It's tough love. But you have to do it sometimes.
Well, I've learned the secret, and it's something I talk about a lot, is nipping it in the bud. That old saying that we used to use casually, and we don't really. That's one of the wisest things I've ever come to understand what nipping it in the bud meant for me, which means addressing it now,
head on, yeah,
before it becomes an infestation or a divorce or living under a bridge. And I learned that. I was very lucky that I had that epiphany. It was like, oh, it means don't let shit go. Address it now, because every time you let these negative things compile, it just gets worse, and to the point that it kills the host. Nipping, budding. You get what I'm saying? You understand what I'm saying? I talk about it a lot.
I totally, and I agree with it.
Go ahead.
Now, I think I have a problem.
I do too. We all have a problem with it.
But again, when you think about what you're talking about, and that's budding a plant or topping a plant, when we used to top tobacco, you have to do it at the right time. And as you get older, it's kind of like, when do I say it's enough? Where's the...
I think I've learned that too.
Yeah.
Timing is everything, because it cannot be done when emotions are high. You have to wait before you discipline children or an employee or anybody. It can't be done when emotions are high, because logic doesn't exist. They don't cohabitate well. So it's about calming down and then reflecting on it. Take some time to reflect. Be responsible with your emotions. We don't get to choose how we feel. We get to choose how long we feel that way by either embracing a negative emotion, or, you get what I'm saying, or making it worse, doubling it down. I think the worst invention ever and greatest invention ever is the text. The text is instant. I love you. I hate you. It's that quick. And people say shit in text messages that they would have never had the opportunity to say had we been on the phone together, and you say something that you didn't mean and then hang up on me. Now you don't answer. Well, back in the day, I had to drive my ass to your house. That was 15 minutes of me processing, and by the time I got there, I may have not been near as mad. But now I can just text you what I think. And man, it's not healthy. I'm learning the value of just not... This is what I've learned. You can respond to any situation, but you cannot necessarily react. And I think that's what a reaction is. A reaction is a response with some kind of emotional connotation attached.
Yep.
And so if I've ever learned anything in life, it's realizing that I feel something and then saying, hold on. Before I make a decision here, let me chill out. And it was one of the hardest things in the world when it comes to disciplining my children, because we say shit we don't mean when they fuck up. We say, you're grounded forever. Well, then now you're lying. You're teaching them to lie, and you get what I'm saying?
No, a couple of things on that. Like one of the things that I taught supervisors in supervisor class, we use Microsoft Office. And there is a little trigger switch you can put in there that delays your emails by 2 minutes. I told every supervisor that come through the class, I said, make sure you find that and click it. I'll show you where it's at.
This is very good.
Because the moment, I cannot tell you how many times in my career I've typed a furious email to somebody and hit send, and then the moment I hit send, I went, oh shit, I wish I had that back. And no, you're right. I do believe the other thing I will add is, and this is the hardest thing, is balance.
Oh.
Yeah.
That painting, they're all about balance.
Yeah.
I've dedicated my life to the idea of balance. Go ahead.
Because I do believe that I'm going to give kudos to the guy I feel like was one of my best mentors was Randy Knight at Nissan. He ended up being the senior vice president or the vice president there or whatever. Early in his years, and again, they say this is old school, okay? This is old school. He would light your ass up. Now, within an hour, he'd either be back to see you or give you a phone call and say, man, I really didn't want to do that. But I think your kids or whoever you're dealing with needs to know where the limit's at.
100. And
then once you set that boundary, it's kind of like you don't want me to go back there. I'm telling you. And so the balance that you got now, I see these paintings. That's true. It's just, and that's the whole BS that makes sense is about that. You gotta make sense out of some stuff.
So you talk about the old way. I think about conservative and progressive, left, right. These are all very. With politics, and I don't want to go into politics, but I do enjoy the psychology of politics.
Yeah.
And I joke around now about politicians being nothing more than wrestlers to me. It's like they're all buddies in the locker room. They come out and talk shit. They're trying to divide a crowd, right? Because that sells tickets. That buys T-shirts, and you want a crowd divided.
Yeah.
You also want to divide a population. That's how you can control it very easily. And maybe it needs to be controlled. There was a quote that I've heard in the last year or so that said, man doesn't want freedom, they want security. And I thought about that a lot, and I thought when my kids were young, I would offer them milk or water. It's dinner time. Do you want milk or water? Tea. I realize when people have choices, they tend to want something that they're not offered. But if you just hand them a glass of water, they accept it. And the same thing happens on an assembly line, in a factory, in the world. Like as humans, we do very well with boundaries. We need boundaries. They're healthy. Even for somebody like me that loves to break boundaries, I love to see where the edge is. But as soon as you say, no, I'm like, all right, I respect that boundary. And I like that boundary. Without you telling me no, like you were saying, you have to be able to lay it out there. This is not happening. That is what creates a healthy environment. And I don't mean to keep going into that.
No.
Okay, so I've been gnawing on this idea. I just got back from Miami, and I was looking around at the poverty and people shitting on the sidewalk, and I was thinking, okay, I can't help but start to analyze that and try to understand why this is happening. And I thought, short-term gains. And you had said something earlier that made me think about that. It was a cell phone, the dopamine hits, the quick highs. Me posting videos, those are short-term gains. And I think short-term gains lead to long-term misery. That quick high, that quick dollar, that quick gambling, you know what I mean? That quick return on my investment. The get-rich-quick schemes. People being defrauded or conned, wanted that quick. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is I guess if I can pull these together, because I'm just now marrying these two ideas, and I was on one thing. I got on two different things, and I may have lost where I was at, but boundaries, I think, is where I was at. And you were talking about, yes.
Yeah, letting people know.
I was watching the Underbelly. It's called White Underbelly. Shit, I cannot think of the freaking name of it. I'm going to look it up. I'm looking it up.
Yeah,
real quick.
look
No,
it
it's
up.
called Soft White Underbelly, I think. So I'm watching all these people. So I'm in. Yeah, it's called. I'm watching all these people in Miami, and I'm thinking, short-term gains, drug addiction, quick high, quick dollar, and it was easy for me to just write them all off. I easily said, yeah, it's just part of it. It's the way it is. But then I start following this channel called Soft White Underbelly. That's the name of it.
Yeah.
And he's actually referring to Italy. Who was it? It'll come to me. But anyways, he referred to Italy as being the soft white underbelly to Germany. It was the easy way in to defeat Germany. And that's how, what the fuck is his name? It's on a plaque. I can't remember his name. Sorry,
No,
I'm bombing
you're
at
good.
this.
You're good.
But I started watching and listening to these people's stories. It was one person with a camera and this individual that had found some really hard times, fell on really hard times. And they were able to just be honest. And when people don't feel judged, they just want to get shit off their chest. And I'm talking about people crying like, okay, this is actually what happened. And they just started admitting to how they got to where they was. So many of them a lot of them was because of their circumstances. They never had a chance. They never had a chance.
Yeah.
With the way the environment they were brought up in. But there were some that had too many options. A lot of the older kids, let's say it was someone that turned to prostitution and crack and all these things, and you come to find out, they had a wonderful life. They had everything handed to them, and that was the problem. Like, there's a balance in life.
Yeah,
you can't give too much.
They just wanted something different, something more. And
Well, once you have everything, and you think, well, this is something, Garrett's wife come on, and she was talking about, she was like, I have one thing I want to talk about, and that is expectations. Wow.
Yeah.
Expectations is how you get to that painting for me. and it's expectations lead to resentment. And so when you have expectations that you have options, and I know I'm just being I'm jumping around. We could sit here and we should start over if we're going to do this and have a good conversation on it. But I see so many families around me with kids that are lost. Like, some of the kids in this neighborhood don't stand a chance at surviving in life because they've had it too easy, because they've had so many options. Like, we look for boundaries. We do well with limited options. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Does any of that make sense?
no,
I
it
worry
does.
about these things.
No, it does. I'm going to throw kind of a wrench into it a little bit, because those people that you're talking about, I don't disagree with what you're saying, but I struggled for a long time with understanding my little brother's alcohol addiction. I didn't understand, why he had, why was it he couldn't quit drinking? And it may have been only until he finally, and he died, he basically bled out. He, I want to say he tried, he took a lot of Tylenol at one time. It damaged his liver, and I think that.
My grandmother died of that.
Yeah, on top of
she
that.
bled from within.
Yeah, and he bled out going to the restroom. But I think it was after that, I don't know how this crap hits me sometimes, but it's like, I'm sitting there one day and I go, you know what? Michael couldn't quit drinking, just like I can't quit overeating. Tom Jones will love this because he calls me fat all the time. But anyway, that's how I understood addiction. And so when you're talking about those people that you saw in Miami and all that, addiction is a real thing. And I didn't give it a lot of credit for many years, because my little brother would come to me and he would say things like, he called me Bubba. He's like, Bubba, all I want to do is have a job like you. And, and I'm like, buddy, all you got to do is commit to working 5 days a week. Let's start with 5 days a week. Drink all you want to on the weekends, but do the 5. And, it was, there was something psychologically, and I know you studied that.
This is good. This is really good. So he had the same upbringing as you.
Yep, same upbringing. As a matter of fact, may have been a little bit more lax, kind of like my mom always was rough on herself about Michael, and, that she didn't
and that
do something
it may
right.
be that simple.
Yeah, but,
this is what I've learned. Like, all the hard shit I've been looking at has taught me more to be more empathetic.
Yeah.
I used to. So have you ever taken a personality test called the Myers-Briggs? 72 questions.
Yeah,
You're
I
one
took
of 16
it,
personalities.
but we used DISC when I was teaching. Okay. Remember, so it only has 4 breakdowns. But
yeah, ENTJ. I was an ENTJ, extroverted,
okay,
intuitive,
right.
Thinking, judgmental. And what does she want? Journey, go away. She wants in.
She keeps nudging the door open. She knows how to open it. It's funny.
Oh yeah. So I was. I thought. Well, long story short, yes, I was very much that. And I don't know that if I took the test again, if I would be the same. I don't think I'm near as judgmental as I used to be. I used to be able to write somebody off really quickly and realize this is all you have to do to fix your problem. Maybe I'm right. Doesn't matter. I don't know what circumstances led them to the problem. For instance, I don't know if I should even tell any of the story. Okay, I'll tell the story. I'm watching this guy named Louie on Soft White Underbelly. And, hold on, real quick. Okay, she's not gonna stop. Journey, every time I show this, you gotta go away, girl. So I'm watching this guy. He, crack addict. The first video was spent $1 million on crack. And you think, oh my God, what a loser. Judgmental. I judged him really quickly. There was 6 videos. He talked about, all the people he stole money from. In 1 minute he's laughing, 1 minute he's crying. I mean, this guy, has seen it all, done it all. Well, then I'd seen the very last video, and it was called There Was a Guy. So that was the title of the video. And so it starts off with, he loved trains. He was 6 years old. He loved trains. And he would watch the Pacific train come by and this train come by. He lived somewhere in California. And he was just fascinated by these trains. And this guy says, you like trains? And I was like, yeah, I love trains. He loves them going by. He said, hey, I got trains at my house. He's like, do you want to come to my house and see them? And he's like, man, I don't know this man. But he convinced him. Gets in his car, goes to his house, shows him the train tracks. And, he's showing him. And he's, they're playing with trains. This grown-ass dude is playing with trains. I won't tell this whole story because it's pretty graphic, but the guy's like, yeah, put the wheel back on that train. Just lean down there and get it. And when he did, he leaned down and he grabbed the kid, 6 years old, by the neck, started choking him, and made him pull his pants down.
Yeah.
I mean, this is hard. We don't know about these things. We don't want to hear it. We
Black,
don't want the reality of what really is happening when we see this Ethiopian kid swelled up with flies crawling out. Just send my dollar. Close my eyes and send my dollar. Right? That's what we do. We don't want to see it. We don't hear about it. We just want it. And we live in a fantasy here in the United States of America. Not even all of us in the U.S. live in a fantasy. Here's this little kid that's being raped by this man. Mm-hmm. Now, I will say there's a good side to this. The man was too big for the little boy. So the little boy ended up slipping away. He ends up getting out of this. I'll keep telling the story because it got even worse. So the man says, if you ever tell anyone, I will cut you completely open. Anyway, he's going to chop this little kid up. Yeah. 6 months, this little kid ain't talking to nobody. He's fucked up. He's with his uncle, and he's crying one day. And he finally, his uncle's like, what's wrong with you, boy? And he says, when I say that, I was speaking a little bit Ebonic. He was a little African-American boy. So his uncle's with these big dudes. He broke down and told his uncle what happened. So his uncles went and found this guy. Handcuffed him, hogtied him, and really messed this guy up. Broomstick. Yeah. Raped this guy with a broomstick. And this little boy not only got molested, then had to witness this man, right? Had to watch the whole thing. Yeah. What I'm saying is that is not that uncommon. I mean, with the horrifying shit that this little boy's seen, it fucked him up for the rest of his life. He don't have a chance. He don't have a chance. We talk about I was spanked too hard, or I had this, or I lived in that. It's like, man, you have no fucking concept of what human beings have had to experience. So it stopped me from saying, just shit on the street, man. Just shit there. I'll step over it because I don't know what life threw at you. I have no concept because I can't relate to it because I have never experienced it.
Yeah, and again, we're not going to get political, but my argument or statements would be, where have our laws gone, to maybe prevent. I think we're so lax nowadays. Between being lax in the law and the fact that we don't take care. How many mental institutions are open nowadays?
I think they closed a lot of them down.
Yeah, I don't know that we take care of the people like we used to, which maybe kept them off the streets. Again, this can get political, and I'm not trying to get political. But you're right. It's amazing. Yeah, my little brother didn't go through anything like that. Now, I will say, me and my dad.
It doesn't take much, though.
Yeah, my dad and I used to have an ongoing argument until he passed. my little brother was actually my cousin. We adopted him when he was 10 months old. Yeah. And he was my uncle's son, and I think he had a lot of my uncle's genes.
1,000%.
But my dad would not religiously, he could back this up with the Bible or something, I think. But we're good. He would, he felt like it was, or he just took it upon himself. He felt like it was his and mom's fault that they didn't raise him right. But he also knew that there was something just not right, because Michael, did turn out. I mean, hell, he was in jail by the time he was 18. So,
well, I mean, he's right. He's right. He didn't do it right. Your mom didn't do it right.
Yeah.
But is that their fault? Like, how do you know? No one even knows that marriage doesn't come with a manual.
Exactly.
Raising children doesn't come with a manual. And that's why I love this podcast, and that's why I'm just now starting to scratch the surface of life's a magic show. And it's full of all these little tricks. And just bringing awareness, little tricks, talking about, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. You know what I mean? Talking about it, being honest. And, as a kid, you would ask a teacher, an adult. When I was a kid, and I would say it's to this day, it's the same thing. A kid asks an adult a serious question. Why did that happen? Well, why is that? An adult always has an answer. The answer is never, well, I don't know. Let's look that up. Because we have such an ego, we're not going to allow ourselves to not know something. It was super freaking weird. As a kid, I thought my dad was the greatest at everything. I thought my mom, you know what I'm saying? And every kid believed that. And I realized, oh, that's not good. No, that's not good. So I really honestly went the opposite way. And I got young. When I was younger, I was like, no, guys, I don't know shit. And that's something they've kind of been brainwashed. My boys have been brainwashed with the philosophy of, I don't know. And I'm constantly talking about it.
Yeah. I always told my boys they didn't come with a manual.
Yeah.
And you've raising three, whatever, and you can probably vouch for this, but they're different. I mean, it doesn't matter if they did come with a manual, the manuals would have to be different. And another thing I would say on that aspect, only until I started teaching and mentoring supervisors did I realize I don't know that I was that good of a supervisor, because I went to the classes and I listened and I tried to implement some of that stuff. But when you really start studying what makes people, you were talking about how you've improved your podcast by, you don't talk as much, you listen. That's one of the things.
No, I said I recognize that's what I do wrong. I still do it. But at least I'm aware of it now.
Yeah, but and that's made me, because that's one thing you and I have in common. We really love to talk. Mm-hmm. And through that class, one of the first day in class, you teach them, listen until it hurts. And that's, and what we go through an exercise where you just keep talking and make them listen. Because I will tell you that this, that the human body, mind, whatever, is already preparing the next statement while I'm sitting here listening to you. I'm already contemplating the next statement I'm going to make. And I make a conscious effort now, whenever I did this in life, I don't know, but I will, at some point in my mind, it goes, okay, Bill, it's time to shut up and listen. And I will just shut down and let somebody else talk, because I feel like I've got that gene in me that will just let me talk and talk and talk, And as a supervisor of people, management of anything, you really need to make sure you hear what the problem is. You go to fix a camera, you're good with cameras, and it may have messed up, the same thing's messed up 14 times, and you're like, oh yeah, it's this. That 15th time, it might not be that, it may be something different. And because you just went ahead and thought you knew what was going on, and that's what happens with managing people. You just think, oh, well, this is what's happened, I need to put this in place. And it's not always true.
Before I forget, and you keep going back to something that takes me to something that actually has happened today. And you've said it multiple times, and I keep saying, I need to talk about that. Maybe it's a sign that I need to jump in. I will say really quickly, I'll say two things. You were just saying, okay, so rules so with our kids, the same rules apply, but the way we communicate is different with each one. And I'm learning that's the art. It's where charisma comes in. It's the art of communicating.
Yep.
And then I'll also say that, what was I? I was trying not to forget. The whole time you was talking, I was thinking, don't forget this, which is not good. It means you're not fucking listening, is what that means.
Something happened today, you said.
Yeah, but I was going to there was one more thing that I was going to say.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to try to retrace your last few words.
I was talking about listening to you hurt. And
yeah, but the very end of it, maybe it'll come back to me. Okay, good. I'm trying to keep these things around an hour, but we're in no hurry to stop.
Fine.
He's supposed to remind me.
No, it's good.
Okay. This is all really good stuff because I've been struggling.
Yeah.
I've been struggling a lot with my direction in life and what my purpose in life is. And I think that's everyone's struggle. Like, what are we here for? What's our purpose? And in the beginning, it's to procreate, right? I've done that. Check. And then invest in those. Invest in your offspring, and that's something you'll do until the day you die. And so I'm doing that, but it's never enough. There's still a hunger. I want more, and you start businesses. I do all these things that get me excited and happy. And the point I'm trying to make is that I'm in a weird spot that I've studied so much when it comes to leadership and responsibility and supervision and management. And I really feel like I've come to understand what it is to lead or be responsible for other people, and I avoid it because it's a huge burden. And once I started understanding, it's really servitude. You're serving people, right? But you're doing it in a way that you're not being ran over, right? I always say, I've said this for a long time, something I understood a while back is there's two types of effective leaders. Effective, they can get the job done. Those that lead with an iron fist, fear you into doing your job, and those that lead with respect, but they don't only show you respect, they demand it as well, and that's a rare thing. So these are concepts that I've been thinking about. But what's funny is I had to take this course. At Nissan, you got to do all these courses.
Yep.
Well, I'm taking another one, and I usually just hit mute, let the shit play. It's what we all do, and I don't care, to be honest. It doesn't bother me a bit. And at the end, answer the questions, get through. Maybe you have to do it 2 times. Maybe you have to go back and screenshot all the major stuff and then go back and cross-reference. So anyway, I'm doing this Harvard learning leadership and people, Harvard, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And it's a 6-part course, and I'm 4 parts in. It asks me a question. I don't listen to one of them. I mean, it's hours long, and I type in what I think sounds good, and I keep going. But then something caught my eye, and I thought, oh, that's really cool. I don't remember. It was something about leadership. It was a philosophy. It was an idea, and I didn't want to hear what they had to say about leadership because I've heard it 1,000 times. And if I'm thinking to myself, I don't want to hear what they have to say. I see how, and I'm not trying to discredit or hurt anybody. I just know the system, and everybody's out for their best interest for the most part. I'm not saying they're out to hurt the company. I'm saying that what my idea of what good leadership is it's a hard thing to accomplish, which is why I try to avoid it. Does that make sense?
No, yeah, exactly.
So I'm not here to judge anyone else, but when I read this, I thought, oh, this is good. So I go back and I start watching the videos. This is excellent information. Why isn't this taught? And I'm thinking, oh, it is. This is someone, you know what I mean? I was assigned to watch this, and then and so I went back and started all over.
Oh, really?
And I was so impressed. Like, I'm not the only one that believes this, but I'm thinking, okay, with the way they were talking about leadership was being inclusive. So we'll just say one thing in general.
Yeah.
You have a team. When you're working with a team, have you ever heard of Price's Law?
Yes, but I couldn't.
So Price's Law is the square root law, okay? And you can take the square root of any group, whether you're talking about the group, the 10 people in your team, the 1,000 people in your factory, the ball team, the orchestra, the doctors, literally, it does not matter. You can take the square root of that group, and the square root of that group will produce about 90% of the overall outcome.
Right.
Talent, skill, humor. It doesn't matter. Whatever you're talking about. And they say 80 to 90%. And that's just a law. It's a physical law. It's a barrier in life, and you have to accept it.
Yep.
So I thought about this for years. For years they've talked about, for instance, I know about maintenance or whatever.
Yep.
How do we get everybody the same? Not possible.
Mm-mm.
Not possible. There's a hierarchy that exists, and it's called Price's Law. The secret that I've learned is that people should always be moving up. We should always be climbing towards something. And when we stop climbing is when we get complacent and we lose our passion. It's actually the downfall to a lot in life. And I don't want to go down to those roads, but divorce, it could lead to a lot. And see if I can stay on track with this. People should constantly be growing. And the whole purpose of the class that I was taking today was about, as a team leader, as a manager, your responsibility is to constantly be helping people accomplish their goals, not to boss people around. Your job is not to manage people. It's to be a servant, help them get to where they need to be. Also, make sure they make it to work, basic responsibilities. But what I'm trying to say is it seems like the responsibility in management is, did they come to work on time, right? Are they doing their chores? No, that's the basic needs. What really needs to be happening is encouragement. You should be encouraging people to move up, move on, or move over. You should try something new. Become a better version of you. And that's, I think, the responsibility of management is to constantly encourage people to be better versions of themselves. And that don't mean just for management. That means on the floor up, because the hierarchy is a triangle and the base is wide. And, there's a lot of people at the bottom, and they should all be climbing. And as they climb, we take each other's spots. I don't know if any of that made sense.
No, it's the explanation of, of why the first line supervisor is the hardest job. I know if you've ever put parts together on a car, it's physically hard. But from a mental standpoint, I guess I should say it that way, the hardest job in that plant is the first line supervisor, because
it does get easier the higher you go.
Exactly
on some levels.
Yeah, exactly what you're saying is that this person is expected to meet these goals that are set out for him and make production and take care of the needs of his people. Well, to get these two things, you've got to take care of the needs of the people. But because you get so much pressure on making production and hitting your goals, you forget about the people. It's like, don't ask me any questions. Hit that damn goal. And
this is a podcast in itself. This is a very complicated idea. There's no simple solutions
here.
Yeah. Because everybody's doing what their manager wants them to do. Because, okay, so the Gulag Archipelago, something I've read a lot about.
Right.
And I don't know if I want to go into it because it's a very complex thing that happened. And it's about the former Soviet Union. It happened between 1915 and 1958. 1918, 1958. And I'll just try to break it down for you. Lenin took over the former. It was a kingdom. Long story short, they introduced socialism, and it got to a point. Oh man, do I even want to go? That's a very hard thing to talk about, and it's complicated. But what I'm trying to say is that at the top, they had to meet numbers. If they didn't meet their numbers, they would just get shot.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is that's the way it works. It starts at the top. The philosophy has to start at the top. And so when I say, it's hard at the bottom, it is. Those things are very difficult. But as you go up, the responsibility gets greater. So yes, you have less tasks, but more overall pressure. You're like, I recognize the pressure that individuals have at the top. They're responsible for whether or not people have a job. Yeah. Every decision you make as you go higher, it has a huge effect on a shit ton of people, generations of people. And it's complicated.
And remember, my statement was, after studying to teach people to do this, I kind of realized I probably sucked at it. I mean, I've had some really nice people tell me, because I am a loving person. I care about people, and I think that came out when I was a supervisor. When I became a section manager, I may have lost some of that. There's the demands are about hitting numbers, and I don't know. That's one thing that I hope we're working on is, when you start managing supervisors, it's a little different than managing frontline workers. And I don't know that we know the difference, but yeah, it's balance. So my thing is back to the balance. I had the guy that put me through some classes. His name is Dave Logston. Those are the people that have been at Nissan a long time. Love Dave. He was a trainer, but he also had a psychology degree. He was really good. He told me one time, he said there's 3 P's to management. It's performance, perception, and politics. 3 P's. You've always got to work on those. And as I got into class, it made more sense. But to hit one, the politics is the one that nobody wants to listen to. It's like, good old boys network or whatever it is. However you want to say it, there has to be somebody look at you and say, Nathan, I like the way you work. I want you working for me. Whether you want to admit it or not, that's politics. That's that person picking you as to be on your team. The perception, I got a story one time. We were going through this training, and they come out with one of our pillars was to be transparent. And I stood up in a meeting one day and told something, and my boss jerked me out of that meeting, and he started drilling my, I'm like, you want us to be transparent? He said, we didn't want you to pull your pants down and stand on the aisle. I was like, oh, I guess I got a little bit too transparent.
I've been told I am too transparent.
Yeah. So again, what you're saying is everything. Maybe I need to come up with a BS that has balance something. But
we can talk about that. Well, everything I can't. You won't name something that I can't start to understand the balance in that, the pros and the cons.
But you're right.
It was just funny that I seen all this today, and so I'm torn. So we're talking about balance.
Yeah, and what's your direction? You said you don't know what your purpose in life.
Well, it's like all these things that I feel like I understand. I've been able to pass those off in relationships, friendships over years of working with people, and what I think about is taking on those leadership roles comes at a price. Okay, so the mechanic. Mm-hmm. The mechanic has all the broke down cars.
Yeah.
The house cleaner has the dirtiest house. It's just the way it is. Mm-hmm. When you do things for a living, things tend to get left behind at home. And I wonder about the sacrifice that it requires to be in management and how that affects home life. I feel that if I invest and I go out and I feel like it's almost surrendering to something, a calling, right? So I've tried to avoid leadership at all costs because I've been in a leadership role since I was a kid. And I don't think I was good at it as a kid, but I studied and I the more I understood, the less I wanted to do it. But now I'm at a point, I'm sitting there watching this program today. I was sitting there studying this. And I'm thinking, do I have a responsibility to serve? It's almost like politics. Yeah. I think of politics, I don't like politicians. I like people that care about something important. And I think maybe I don't know the terminology of what a politician is, but when you become a politician, a career politician, I guess you could say, you're doing more bad than good. You've lost reality. You lost touch with reality. And I think the same thing could happen in leadership. It's almost like it's something, it's hard to describe, but it's almost like you need to volunteer your services for a time and then be willing to relinquish that. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense? Move over to something else. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah. No. I
almost feel like I should dedicate a portion of my life to giving back, a lot of the things that I've learned. And I'm not thinking that I would be this great. I think that I've learned a lot of little tricks in life that can help a lot of people. I know they would. I've already experienced that a lot. And anyways, with what you've done in life, it really inspired me.
It's very gratifying. I'm telling you, it's gratifying, but you kind of hit on the fact that it will consume you.
Okay, so if you have to perform for a bunch of people at work that have family problems, they're coming to work every day, and you're just trying to keep this team functioning optimally for an overall goal of keeping us all fed and employed, like you're dedicating your life to people's problems, to helping them overcoming things, because that's what a team leader is, a manager. I think that's ultimately what it is, serving. How I believe that would dramatically affect your home life. Like, how can you be emotionally available for your children, your wife? Like, it's at some point, I don't want to fucking hear it.
I wasn't. I mean,
that's the problem.
That's my
that's what I worry about.
A fault I've had in life. I mean, I think my divorce was directly connected to the fact that I worked so much. I mean, it was just I feel like I neglect. I do feel like I'm trying to make some of it back, but yeah, I was one of my thoughts I can remember thinking about divorce was that, you know, I only see my kids 2 hours a day anyway, and those 2 hours could be consumed by either arguments or me not paying them attention anyway. I swear, I think I saw my kids more after the divorce because I hardly ever, the only time I missed my weekends or my visitation with my kids was when I was in Japan. But I'm, you know, you see what I'm saying? I was committed to making those visits or at least offering those visits. Now, once the kids gets a certain age and they don't want to come or don't want to go or whatever, that's fine. But yeah, you're making, in my life, let me just back up and say it that way. In my life, I made a sacrifice that I look back sometime and say, was it worth it?
There was consequences.
Yeah, there was consequences.
And that's why I say maybe serving, like a good management position is something it should be temporary, I think, until you move up to something else or a different, move over, move up, move on. Everybody's afraid to change. Everybody gets in their position and they become resentful and they stay in that supervisor or that manager role for way too long. In that marriage, you know, people stay too long without making a change. I don't know. It's just something I think about.
I mean, there's more to it.
It is complicated.
You know, my wife now has a psychology degree. She's taught me so much.
That's what I need to do. I need to invite a psychologist on. I'm just full of questions.
Yeah, but I mean, she taught me. I never would have thought of my first marriage this way. But you know, me and my first wife met in high school, and we married young, and we had children, and my wife now talks about it as a tree, two trees growing together, intertwined. And you just kind of grew, you know, when I got my contractor's license and wanted to start building houses, my ex-wife, she was there for me, and we built houses. And then we went into rental property, and we sold on eBay, and we did several different things together. But she said, there comes a point in everybody's life where you change. Yeah. And me and my wife now talk about it we met right at 10 or 11 years ago. Between that time now and now, 10 years later, there's been changes. And we acknowledge that, whereas in the other marriage, it was more like, well, you've changed. Or, you know, there'd be an argument.
This is good stuff. This is another podcast.
Yeah, well, and I don't mean to break out into...
No, I love all this. No, this is good.
But, yeah, it's something that she has brought to light to me that's why when I give people advice about marriage or dating or whatever, I said, be friends first. If you can be friends... the marriage thing just works out because I'm hard to love. I don't know why Ann wants to be with me because I'm moody. Hell, ask Garrett. Garrett, knows me probably the best. He says I'm a whiny little bitch sometimes, but I know that I have a temper. We talk about balance. There's things that I have about me that are not very lovable, but she likes me as a person. You know what I'm saying? We're friends, and that's crazy.
Well, so talking about balance, I believe I learned this when I was really young. I think the things that make us great are also our biggest enemies. It's the thing that also holds us back the most, that thing about balance. Mm-hmm. And look, man, I'm not trying to be philosophical and Buddhist, but I started noticing these patterns that, that these ancient religions knew for thousands of years. And they talk about balance, and I'm starting to recognize, oh, shit, the things we were talking about, my inferiority complex. This thing that holds me back so much in life is what made me so good at everything. So it's about, I think the secret is being aware of it And that's the hardest thing, is being aware of our negative sides. Like it usually takes like reflection, a divorce, and then we get to reflect on, oh yeah, I was a dick, but I didn't know that. I thought it was her fault until then, right?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, you're right. And let me add something to you. I think I can't remember if I've talked to you about another thing my wife's taught me.
I need to have her on.
Yeah, she doesn't do good with this. She's not a public speaker. She's really shy, full of knowledge. But she talks about the yardstick of life, and that's something that I'm kind of throwing out there. But have you ever thought about life as a yardstick?
Not once.
Yeah, so me either.
Except for, I think of the rule of thirds. Yardstick's the rule of thirds.
Wow.
It's the Fibonacci sequence.
Okay.
And so that's the rate of expansion, 1.6180, I think it is the rate of expansion, and we call it the rule of thirds. It's a simple way of describing everything in threes.
Yeah. So
does that have anything to do with that?
The redneck version of that is the yardstick of life.
So, yeah, this is something else.
No, so think about our kids. My wife and I both have been married before, and we have children from the previous marriage, and there's struggles. And I can hear her telling one of the children, even my kid, at one time he's going through something, and she says, "Think about it. You're in like the first 6 inches of life."
Okay, yeah.
You've got this whole yardstick.
Yeah.
The whole 6 inches of life. And when you think of life, and where you are in the yardstick, and talking about the third thing, that comes into play, because this is part of the BS that makes sense. Because when my dad died, I realized my dad was 23 years older than me. Okay, he died 3 years ago. So if I live to be as old as my dad, I got 20 more years left, right? Now put this on a yardstick.
Oh, I've seen this
done.
done.
Yeah, and I'm on the end. Now I'm going to throw another wrench in it. How many good years did my dad have? So when my dad actually retired at 62, soon after that, he died at 75. So I'm going to say the last 5 years of my dad's life, he kind of struggled some. He wasn't as active and things like that. So that cuts it down to 15. I got 15 good years.
I always had a buddy named Pino that used to say, "I'm not real excited about the last 10 years of my life." He said the last 10 is the worst 10.
Yeah,
like, you're right.
So I'm sharing this this whole story that I just told you with your neighbor. I told you he lives over here close to you. He looks at me and he says, "Bill, I'm 73 years old. Why the hell are you telling me this story?" and it made sense to me. I'm like, "Well, sorry, Lou, but that it brings thing into proportion when you look at your life as a yardstick." And not that everybody knows when the end of their yardstick is, and we know that happens. But if you, that's why the BS that makes sense.
Well,
it's
I've actually heard this measurement described. I've seen it on a YouTube video, and they didn't talk about the yardstick, but they targeted. Matter of fact, I think it was a Casey Neistat video, and he was talking about life and the rate of in which you experience it. And so when you're a year old, you've lived 100% of your life.
Yeah.
Right? And it's why time goes by slower, is what they were ultimately trying to suggest, is that while you're young, time goes by super slow, but as you get older, you've lived greater percentage of your life. And it relates to the yardstick. And the further you go, the faster it goes. You would have to see the video. I'm not doing it justice, but it associates with what you're saying. But I was thinking about your dad, and I was thinking, actually, he probably lived a good life. And this is why I think we do everything for that hit. We're motivated by that hit. The biology and evolution rewards the human body, the psyche, by rewarding us by doing good deeds, by being a productive member of society, by giving, right? By all these things. Now, it rewards us also by buying, sex, gambling, all these little short-term gains.
Right.
Is a spike of these hormones, but it don't last. It goes away just as fast as you got it. But earning something, giving something, really lasts. It lasts forever. It lasts through your eulogy, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And so there was a book that I have not read. It was suggested by a friend of ours, Tom. Oh, you're good. It was suggested by a friend of ours, and it was, I can't think that he was a psychologist, but it was during the Holocaust, and the way they would choose people to be sent to the gas chamber, or you was either sent to the gas chamber or you were sent to a factory. And apparently, I don't know much, and I don't claim to be an expert, and maybe I'm botching this, but if you looked like you could be productive, you went to the factory. If you didn't, you got sent to the gas chamber, and they just put you out of your misery. So when you went to the factory, you had to be very productive. If you weren't, they would hang or sacrifice the two least producing individuals of the day to motivate individuals to work hard. So the people that struggled the most were the ones that hoarded their rationings, their food, basically.
Rations,
yeah, their rations. They would hoard it, and they would be very stingy with it. The ones that actually survived were the ones that gave. And the human body, like, there's something psychologically rewarding. And okay, so the biggest killer in humans is cortisol. Number one killer of all humans is cortisol. It restricts the blood vessels, and that's what it does. It's the greatest hormone of all because it's what tells us to move or stop. It really helps us. It's where our gut instinct comes from, and we sense it in our gut first because it actually restricts the blood vessels in or around our stomach first. But then throughout the body, if you still continue to make bad choices, it eventually causes strokes, heart attacks, right?
Right.
So doing something good, giving, reduces cortisol and increases dopamine. And that's how these people survived. And this guy went on to be a psychologist. And I don't know the whole story, but I actually learned about it through Jordan Peterson's, a huge inspiration in my life. Yeah. But he referred to this gentleman. I can't remember his name, but it's this man's secret to happiness or whatever it was. But it was about giving.
Yeah.
And wow, it was, he was talking about your dad, how much he gave. That was his. I think that made him feel incredible. It's probably why he lived to be 75.
Yeah, Dad, again, very studied in the Bible, very religious. There was only a few years of my life that I can remember where my dad wasn't studying the Bible. And actually, late in life, it was every morning. He'd get up, he'd have the Bible. You're like, how much can you read the Bible and study the Bible? But my dad, I've got pictures of him studying the Bible. Talking about that, another lesson that I took from Dad, talking about getting old and, where I am on the yardstick of life, and hopefully I'm going to try to live longer. But when we got Dad's diagnosis of, he might live 2 weeks, he might live 2 months, but that was about it. He taught me another lesson, man. He looked death right in the eyes. I was on the telephone, but I still can hear him say, "Billy, I'm prayed up, packed up, ready to go." Basically, he said, "Let's do this," and it was crazy. I mean, just to put him in hospice and to sit there and give him the medication, and every morning he would poke me in the chest, "Go to work. You go to work." And I said, "Dad, I'm good. We're good." But and until his last breath, I want to think, and I think I do live life. I think that is my my genre of life right now. Is if I get killed on the way home from here, I've lived it as full as I can freaking live it. It's my dad, me saying, "I'm good. Let's, if God decides it's my time, He knows I'm good." Yeah, I'm not the religious guy. I'm not the one who goes to church. That's a whole other podcast. We could talk about religion, but I do believe in God. I pray to Him a lot more since mom passed away. But I think Dad has taught me. You look it straight in the eye and say, "Bring it, let's go."
I love that you're saying that, and it's something I think about a lot. Not necessarily in those terms, but I can relate to it because, okay, so I think of everything as an investment. Mm-hmm. Everything,
yeah.
Every friendship, relationship, idea. It's effort on my part. How much am I willing to invest? How much effort, time So we talk about giving. Giving is an easy way to reduce cortisol. I think of everything now as hormones.
Right.
How do I turn it on? How do I turn it off? So that's fundamentally that's what's happening. I'm manipulating that. You say take a pill and that gets you high. No, the pill releases a chemical that we've already produced and stored in a gland, and it says it's a gateway. It's a valve. These drugs are valves. Or giving is a way to say reward yourself. So I think about these things a lot, and I think my stress, my blood pressure, I felt it. I knew my blood pressure was high. I could feel it. My body was letting me know. I had a gut instinct about it. I didn't need a doctor to tell me. Like, I knew it. I was already conscious of it. What I'm trying to say is that I needed to stop and reflect on why that was happening. I'm making a bad investment. Why am I chasing this? Like, what is the purpose? Am I providing value in other people's lives? I don't think so. I think at one time I was. I think I was providing a lot of value, but then it just became about money, and then I just didn't know what to do with the money, so I just spent all the money, and it gave me a quick high.
Yeah.
But I was lucky enough to recognize my body telling me good choice, bad choice, good investment, bad investment. Yeah. So I'm stopping, and I think this is a secret. Maybe this is the secret to longevity, and maybe looking death in the eye. It's about making. How do I fucking feel? Am I stressed? Why? It's because I'm making a bad investment, right? Or I something's not right. I'm not making good choices in life, and I'm investing in the wrong thing. And I think if we can be more aware of that, of ourselves, I think we can live a long life and get to a point that we're like, all right, I'm ready to go. I've done my part. I've really given as much as I can give, and I'm ready to see what's on the other side.
And I didn't get into that when we were talking earlier, but that is, I think, I worked it for so many years trying to build a nest egg. I think I've told you, I've kept a spreadsheet for 20 years of, what it's going to be like to retire. But in that moment of losing Dad and hearing that preacher talk about Dad, and in the next few months, that giving thing, that I didn't do that before. I was hoarding.
And it's not just money. It could be time is more valuable than money.
Same. Yeah. I mean, my story, which, you've asked me to tell, and we've only touched part of it, but, I had a retirement job at Nissan, being a project manager, of QX60 and the Pathfinder. Loved it. Go to Japan, got to travel, do everything. And, all at once, I'm sitting there, and I hope we're not going too long, but, it's like I'm sitting there in Detroit on a project, and one of my guys look over, and he says, they need a coach, mentor. What is that in Smyrna? I'm like, what are you talking about? I don't go to Brass Ring. I'm happy with what I'm doing. I can retire there. And it just kind of, a coach? What is this? And I look it up, and sure enough, the guy that it's under, I used to work for or work with. And I'm like, I just sent him a note. I said, hey, what are y'all looking for? Well, it's a supervisor's position. And I'm like, you know what? I tell you what, if you don't touch my money, I don't give a shit about the title. I'll just go do this. And long story short, within 2 or 3 months, I get this job. I got it in like November. Was it November? It was September, October, November. I get the job. And I get the job because the lady that was interviewing, who was my boss, I looked at her and I said, I think it's time for me to give back.
Yeah.
Now, granted, Dad had not died then. This was just me.
Well, you had figured out a few tricks.
I said, I was like, if I can get this job, don't touch my money. I'll do this. I would love to teach what I've done after 30 years. And they gave me the job. 2 months later, my dad dies. The lady that gave me the job is holding me around the waist. God love her. I still love her to this day. Listening to me on the speakerphone with my dad saying, I'm packed up, prayed up, Billy. It's time to go. She's crying with me in the parking lot. I get this job where I'm giving back to Nissan, the supervisors, the people that are coming up under me. And I enjoy it. Lou's dad, he goes and I'm teaching. They're training me. I'm feel like I'm hitting my stride. We're doing good. And then the third year comes. The mom, my son says, "Hey, I'm gonna build a new house. Can mom come live with you?" My son had taken my mom, and I'm like, "Yeah, sure. We'll figure this out." So we make mom a room in my house, and she moves in February. Pandemic hits in March, and they send us all home. Now, this is right at 2 years after my dad had died, and now I've got my mom every day. We had some great conversations. There was a lot of times my mom would say, Billy, I never told you about your dad doing this. And she'd just tell me. I still loved him, but we did this. Great conversations. And then in that same year, I get offered to retire. I'm like, pandemic it sucked. It took my mom, in November, the day before Thanksgiving, she started. Anyway, it's just crazy. I say God is working in my life somehow. I'm not for sure how. Don't care. I'm just doing what I think is right. I'm not hurting anybody. I'm giving. But to think that months before I got the job, I got it because I said I wanted to give back. And then my mind to be changed in December of that year because my dad was a giving person and I thought he just didn't know how to. Help my dad. There probably people still owes my dad money because he would give them cars and tell them, just pay me whatever you can. Yeah. And so it was really quick, but that's kind of my story of the last 3 years of my life. And it's crazy because I'm sitting here going, that's why when you hit me up with the podcast, I'm like,
I did that because I'm a very observant guy. Okay, so you know what I like?
Yeah.
I like helping. Okay, I like helping people unpack an untapped potential.
Yeah.
Right? When I see, so we're the last to see our own potential, right? Our families, friends, random fucking strangers can say, you'd be great at this, right? And we're the last to really see it. And so when I see someone that could provide value in other people's lives, and I think that's the secret. The secret to why we're on this planet is to do nothing more than to give more than we take, and we do that by providing value in other people's lives. If you're financially in a position that all you have to do is give money, if that leaves you sleeping good at night and you don't feel that gut burning, you're making good choices.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is that when I thought of you and you being retired, I worried. I instinctively thought, this is where people die quickly. Like this is where people don't, because people don't know what to do. They stop providing value and they start being a consumer more than a producer. And then the human body releases high levels of cortisol and it kills them quick. It's the way we're designed. We're designed to say, as a species, it's pretty incredible.
Yeah.
What's happening in the background is like unproductive. Let's take him out. It's like this machine that's creating space for the species to evolve.
Yeah.
God, call it whatever you want.
Yeah, I get it.
But I'm saying these hormones are being released. So when I thought about you, I was thinking, you're looking for something. I knew you were looking for something to invest in. And it didn't necessarily mean financially, but we were talking about investments. You wanted to be a part of something. And I was thinking, well, here you are. You've had this job at Nissan where you have a lot to offer. You've learned a lot of little tricks. So that's, I think ultimately maybe, and I knew your personality. You're a funny guy. We didn't really go into all that. We didn't get to be ourselves in this podcast, but because we're still getting to know each other. I don't know you that well. We're learning about each other. But I just thought, man, this guy would make a fucking great podcaster. I don't know how big it'd be. It doesn't matter to me as long as you provided value in someone else's life.
Yeah, and I'm still pursuing it. It's just I will agree with you. I call it a struggle because, and I do want to back up and say, I've learned to give since then. It's just really weird that I've thrown it out. I basically thrown myself out there. I want to help people.
You want to invest.
Yeah. Now, it's not like, again, me and my wife travel some, so it's got to be on my.
I think that's important too.
It's on my terms,
Yeah,
and that makes it a little sketchy. But no, it's been very gratifying.
I think as long as you can do it without financial gain and worried about that, it's going to be. That's the fucked up thing. Once you stop doing it for money, the money starts coming. That's the weird thing about it, Right. That's really what really happens when it's an honest dollar like that. It just becomes something you become obsessed with, which could be a negative, Yeah. I'm a very obsessive guy. Once I get into something,
I'm still trying to figure it out. Like I said, it was like a godsend or whatever when you asked me, hey, have you ever thought about this? And I was thinking, holy crap, and since then I've invested, bought the equipment. We just haven't done it.
Is this your first podcast?
Very first one.
So another reason why I wanted to get you on, I wanted you to see what it felt like. Because I got to say it is. Okay.
Go ahead.
So you and I both have had really good conversations with each other, with individuals. Like we tend to have a knack. Whether people like it or not, we enjoy the conversations we're involved with.
Yeah.
Right. And I didn't know if an audience would enjoy it. I just knew that I was enjoying all the conversations that I found myself in.
Yeah.
But I realized there was something different about those conversations. They were very organic. So we didn't know that we were going to hit it off. Everybody I've ever had a wonderful conversation with, it was never planned. And this is something I'm starting to understand. Good conversations aren't planned. You didn't, first of all, you never knew it was going to happen.
Right.
But then you do something like a podcast. Well, now it's planned.
Yeah.
So now you start to worry, what am I going to talk about? Am I going to sound like an idiot? Am I going to be relatable? What are people going to think? Right? And so when I first started doing the podcast, I knew when I named it Random Thoughts, I knew the importance of that. Because I had talked to you earlier about trying to think about what I was going to say to someone in an interview, in an argument, a girl or whatever, and I bombed every time. So what I'm saying is that recording a conversation is totally different. It requires some level of investment and commitment. I don't know how to describe it, but I know this. The secret is have something to start with and then see where it goes from there. And here we are. We're talking about shit that I could have never... It's actually the secret to life. What I'm talking about is the secret to life. We wonder how to achieve something. It's the how. So I have a formula. I've never talked to you about my formula. I talk about it a lot with friends, but I've never. I wrote and created the how, the why, and the what to life. It's my formula. It's my path, and it works for me.
Yeah.
And so the how for me is this. So it's about taking action. It's about doing something in blind faith. Just saying, fuck it, I'll do it. Mm-hmm. Because if we don't do it in blind faith, then we sit there and try to figure out, we try to fabricate possible scenarios. And every time we do that, it's always a brick wall that just could never be overcome. I don't know if this makes any sense. Maybe I went out in the left field. What I'm trying to say is we don't start businesses. We don't follow through on stuff. We don't ask the girl out. We don't do these things because our mind has the ability to say, you're a fucking loser. It just constantly reminds us of how we couldn't accomplish something. Yeah. And I guess that's the point of when I go into something, I don't want to know let's just do it and see what happens. And I know a lot of the things I talked about tonight were just, I hope people understand where I'm coming from because we kind of just touched on a bunch of different things.
Yeah, we went around a lot of different topics, but I mean, that just shows you that we're very broad. I mean, that's why, this is my first podcast. We did test out the equipment, Tom and I, my buddy that's been in broadcasting, and we did about a 15 or 20 minute talking about, he has a broadcaster's voice. Yeah. He has the radio voice, and I don't. I know what I have.
Which is why you would be great at podcasting.
Well, but what I've learned, and it's really funny because you almost missed it a second ago, I downloaded TikTok a few months ago, and been doing some stuff, messing with my kids. But I found this kid on there who has this incredible low voice, and he sings. Luke the Voice, I think, is what his handle is on TikTok. And other night he made this, you can ask him questions. Somebody asked him a question, says, "Do you like your voice?" And he said, "I hate my voice." Yeah. And my buddy Tom, who sounds like a radio broadcaster, hates. I've learned
because your voice is unique.
Yeah, well, and the fact is, none of us like our voice, so you just have to get over it.
Well, no, you actually will get used to it. And it becomes, I've heard my voice so much on camera, just from directing and not necessarily from being on camera, but just hearing from editing. My voice sounds like my voice now, and I don't even think anything about it. And the more you do it, what I'm saying is, I think the whole point of what I just tried to say was, don't think about it. Just that's really the same.
I totally get it.
And that isn't just to you. That's to everybody that's listening.
I totally agree.
Just say a blind leap of faith. So for you, it's funny because you save and spreadsheets and plan, right?
Yeah.
I'm 100% on the other end of the spectrum.
Nope, I agree.
And the truth is we're both going to be okay.
Yep.
I really, without a shadow of a doubt, know I'm going to be okay. It just, when I see people shitting in the street and they got a little bit of chub on them, they're getting fed.
I can't handle that.
What I'm trying to say is that we're going to be fine. Yeah. You know what I mean? Just go take a chance in life, have fun, give back, invest in people.
Yeah, my last story, I never told you about this, but I took talking about just leap of faith. One time I decided I was starting an auction house. Bought a trailer truck load of merchandise, started this auction house there in Smithville. 6 weeks, I think it was, 8 weeks, I lost somewhere around $40,000 to $50,000. And I had an old man look at me and he said, "You know what? You just paid for your second college education." And that's
so funny you're saying this.
That's why I'm I can't jump into things without planning anymore.
No. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. I like that. Did this place have anything to do with like items that would end up in a 99-cent store?
Hell, they could have.
So you just bought a warehouse full of stuff.
It was return merchandise. It's the big deal.
So
that,
All right. So Smithville.
Yeah.
I knew that place for a reason. My dad was a hustler. He invested in everything.
We've talked about him.
He had the later years of his life, he was looking for the quick return.
Yeah.
He always invested into crazy things that were long-term investments. All of them worked out fine.
Right.
Because he didn't plan on a quick dollar. He planned on, I don't know, we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
That was it. And every one were profitable. Every one where he looked for that quick return, honey, I can make $10,000 off of this $40,000 investment. He started, and I think you can, without a shadow of a doubt, but it's not a quick return. You got to be willing to set on it for a long time. So my dad started buying up this 99-cent stuff. I remember he bought 5,000 candles that were called One Light, One Wonders. He bought a warehouse full of 99-cent stuff store in this warehouse in Smithville. Yes.
Wow.
It was a 99-cent. So whatever. My dad started
my warehouse, but anyway.
Well, my dad started this store called Calamity Jane's. If you know anything about Calamity Jane, it's like a clusterfuck, I guess is the best way to describe it. He tried to give me the. Was it like?
I just know the name.
Okay, so Calamity Jane did not mean good. That's what I'm trying to say. So we built this 99-cent store and we packed it full of 99-cent shit, and I helped him. I was going back and forth getting trailer loads of this stuff.
Yeah. And
in the end, he lost.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I would say you said 50,000. I would say in the ballpark of 50 and up is what he lost out of that. And but it was late in life. You know, he was in his mid 60s, late 60s, and it was not a good time to be losing.
Yeah.
So, anyways, those short-term gains. He spent his life long-term, and then in the end, looking for that quick return, and it bit him in the ass.
That would have been mine. Would have been, my son's 25, and he was in a playpen during that time, so it had been 24 years. I'd been about 32 years old when I done this. So 2003,
I guess.
Yeah,
is when I was involved in this.
Wow.
So 18, 19 years ago.
Close, but And
No, it wasn't you. I know exactly
yeah.
who the guy was. I
Right.
just didn't know if you were involved.
No,
in it.
it was just it was funny because I mimicked it over an auction that was out of Columbia. My problem was anyway. It's too long of a story, but yeah, it was a great lesson, and since that day I've been very, and I guess I grew through my management ranks and learned a lot of things. You know, it's just you don't just jump into stuff without calculations and being a businessman.
Well, I agree 1,000%. I am very obsessive and compulsive.
Mm-hmm.
Once I obsess over something long enough, I compulsively jump right in. It's like I really think about it, So I shouldn't say, but once my gut says let's do it, I'm all in.
Yeah.
But I will have done the research, but most people will do all the research and say, I just don't feel it. You know what I mean? They just never go for it.
But I'm like you. I think I'm at a point in life where there's something's going to come along. I know it. I mean, my kids, my two older boys are pretty successful, and we toss ideas around a lot. Car washes and crap like that. But
You're just looking for something to invest your time in.
Well, and again, there's a struggle there because I've had some offers, and some of it's like, yeah, as long as it's on my time, and then but this BS stuff, I hope it takes off. I'm still working on it. It's one of those where if I could just get some traction, know I'm helping some people, and feel good about it. It's
without a shadow of a doubt, I think you would be. I mean. That's why I say there's no wrong path. You just got to pick a path.
I agree.
And as long as you can provide a path that worked for you, it'll work for somebody else. And they'll just take nits. Like when I look about my parents' parenting skills, I think about what they done right and think about I don't take everything right. I take bits and pieces of it. Yeah. Little things that I learn. It's part of it. Anyways, how long we been going?
2 hours.
All right.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Bill Shaw. BS.
BS.
I think there was a bunch of BS that I hope made sense. I hope I wasn't too out there.
You can look back through it, figure it out. It's all good.
I probably won't. I'm just glad you came on. I've really enjoyed myself. Thank you so much.
But
Did you have a good time?
I did.